Welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. And this week, fly me to the moon. We're talking about Apollo! Cue the music! Hello there, capers, and as I said, welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. My name is Scott James Merridew, and this is the show where we talk about various geek and nerd-related topics, and are joined each week by a very special different guest. Now, my guests today are two people who I think know what they're talking about. They've made a brilliant comic, Capers. Give it up for Chris Baker and Matt Fitch.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Matt here.
Hey.
Hey there.
Chris here. Hey.
How you guys doing?
Yeah, we're pretty good. Yeah, we're feeling good.
You should be feeling good. You've done a pretty good job on this comic, guys. I'd be feeling good.
I'm blushing. I really am blushing.
No, stop it. In fact, now just so the capers know, who's Chris and who's Matt?
I am Matt. Hello.
And I am Chris.
Good. So we're all sorted on who is Matt and who is Chris. And who am I? Scott. That's right. Just making sure everyone is on it. Everyone knows who everyone is. That's the important thing is. So,
Can't do that.
So guys, Apollo. It's awesome.
Oh.
Thanks.
Yeah, you really liked it, hey?
I liked it for a lot of reasons. The main one being, the main one is it's very well written and very well drawn and everything. It's a very well put together comic. But the second reason is, at least in my experience, I haven't experienced a lot of naturalistic, based on real events, comics, sort of biopic comics.
Well, you need to read more SelfMadeHero books then, Scott, because, there's a big comics. Oh, I could talk about this for a while. Comics is more than just, zap and pow. It's just a means to an end. And when Matt contacted me, we were heavily into writing alien science fiction and weird kind of like...
Oh, I've read some of your guys' previous stuff, and...
Yeah. So Matt had read Neil Armstrong's biography, and we kind of just started a very loose conversation about maybe doing something around a real-world event, like the Apollo moon landing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. It was Neil Armstrong was the main thing you wanted to do something on.
Yeah, well, I read, like you said, I read his biography, First Man, which they've now made the movie based on. And it read like an action movie, or it read like fiction, pretty much. It had all the drama, all the emotion, and it just struck me that it was kind of all there, This guy was almost like a superhero, but in real life. But he was also very human. And yeah, I just thought, wow, this is kind of different to what we've done before. And also, we thought it might be nice to do something that bridged the gap and wasn't just... Everything we've done is very, fantasy, sci-fi, comics based, and we're always kind of talking to the same people, the kind of people that you meet at cons who, that community that likes all that kind of stuff, which we are part of. Nerds, yeah, let's call them nerds. And, but, we thought, well, maybe we could write something that appealed to the nerds and the comic fans, but also the history fans and the space fans, and maybe try and suck a few of those people into the nerd sphere as well, and also get some of the nerds into the real, the science fact. So that was kind of the inspiration.
You can consider me totally and thoroughly sucked off in that case. Wait, no, that sounds wrong. Oh, no. No.
I love this podcast.
Is it that kind of podcast? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Anything goes here.
Right.
Oh,
never say anything goes to the Fitch Baker when you're going to interview them.
That is true. We have an anarchist streak.
Oh no. We won't want any of that here.
Right.
This is where you cue in some Sex Pistols music underneath us talking.
You see, but that's probably because I live in Edinburgh, so all we hear over here is the Proclaimers.
Right.
Oh, well, good for you.
Yeah. So if you want a bit of the Kilmarnock blues, we got that.
Oh, well, I think that's a line underneath that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Now, before we go talk about Apollo in any great detail, let's talk a bit more about you guys and your other stuff. So, Dead Canary Comics, you know a lot of stuff for them.
It's funny, Dead Canary Comics. Matt and I, we the other week we had a meeting with the Dead Canary core members, and we've been talking about doing potentially something else. Dead Canary, Matt and I took a slight hiatus from the running of the publisher. It's a lot of work, as you probably know. You go to a lot of cons, you do a lot of handshaking, a lot of meeting, greeting, and a lot of calling stores. And we really wanted to take just a little time to focus more on the writing. So I mean, Matt and I have over the last year probably written about 5 or 6 reasonably good scripts that we are now taking to market in some shape or form. But now we're feeling like Dead Canary, we could probably come back a little bit to, maybe do another short, maybe do another book. It's a nice place to come back to, and we've got a good readership. So yeah, it's nice that you appreciate the stuff we've done previously. Yeah, it's nice to hear people say that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I read Fitzroy and I really liked it, and I read The Last Driver and I really, really liked it, to the point where I actually created a character in Fallout 4 based around the main character in there. He looks exactly like it. It was awesome.
Please link a screenshot to that character in this thread.
I don't know how I'd be able to do that, but I'll try and send that to you, because I think he looks pretty dead on, to be honest. He's got the sunglasses and everything. He's got the tank top. He looks awesome. And then I also read Frogman, which scared me. It scared me, guys.
It's a bit twisted. I mean, that was the first thing that the Canary ever made a long time ago now. I think that was like 2012.
Yeah.
Well, anything went in 2012, you know.
Yeah, that was a crazy year, 2012.
Yeah.
Well, we all thought the world was ending, so we just did whatever the hell we wanted.
Yeah. And that's when Disney bought Star Wars. Oh.
And
it's all gone so well since then, hasn't it?
Been going great. I mean, no one's sick of Star Wars at all.
No. And, you know, the fan base in particular have been so unusually mellow and not unbelievably gittish and awful.
It's almost like dividing people is the way that people at the top sell things now.
Yeah. God. But on to much nicer stuff. So you went away from Dead Canary Comics and you went on to SelfMadeHero. So how did that happen?
Well, it was weird that you started talking about the Fitzroy, because Matt and I, Paul and Charlie and Mark and all the people back at the beginning, we had a bit of a launch party for the Fitzroy. I'm not sure if maybe David came, I'm not sure, but it was a bit of a bash in East London, and it went on all night. And Emma from SelfMadeHero basically came along. I'd been asking her to come for a while, been sort of stalking her a little, and she came. We had a drink. I remember breakdancing in front of Crent Abel, which was fun. And I think we made a great impression. And so she met us again, and Matt and I did have a sort of plan, and Apollo was by that point written. So we had a fully formed script, which wasn't too different to the one you've read now. And she liked it. She took it away and read it. And it was kind of a weird rock and roll story. We were called into the office and we sat on their lovely sofa, and she just basically said, all right then guys, we'll publish this. You know, when do we start? Who do I make the check out to? It was very much like that.
Bring me the standard fame and fortune contract.
Oh, I love the Muppet movies.
Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection.
Am I streamlining that story too much, Matt? That's the gist, right?
No, I mean, it was actually very surprisingly easy, because, you know, we've pitched to other publishers and we've had rejections like so many other comic writers out there, and it's tough, you know, and we were kind of used to just self-publishing, and we were actually going to self-publish Apollo to begin with. The reason we took it to SelfMadeHero and not Dead Canary in the end is just because of the scope of it. You know, it's 140 pages. We had a pretty major artist in Mike Collins attached to it. And we
not
just
to be confused with the astronaut Michael Collins.
Weird coincidence that, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
Matt found Mike. I didn't go to, I think it was London Super Comic Con or MCM.
Yeah, one of the London ones. Yeah.
One of the London ones, and Matt went and I did it, and he had just gone on a mission, like handing out cards and networking, and rather than selling comics, and had sent Apollo out. I mean, you sent Apollo out to a nice list of people, I believe, Matt, didn't you?
Yeah, but Mike was always kind of at the top because he's got that classic style. You know, he's been drawing comics for best part of 30 years, more probably, and he's got a very classic narrative sensibility, and obviously his art style is kind of, I don't want to say retro because that almost gives it a disservice, but it just has a quality about it that I felt was right for Apollo. We didn't want any.
It's very almost a slightly more photorealistic sort of Jack Kirby vibe that I got from it.
It is, yeah. Like we wanted it to be of the time, but not necessarily completely riffing on 1960s art. Like Mike hasn't done an impersonation of 1960s art, but he's given it that kind of vibe, if you know what I mean. It's like a cover version of a 60s comic.
Yeah, I think he struck the perfect tone for that, because I've read comics that go for a photorealistic vibe, and it's very uncanny valley. It's very, and if you'd done it more in a sort of, for want of a better word, cartoony sort of way, that may have, I don't know, detracted from the serious tone of the story. I mean, I'm not saying you can't do a very serious comic with a slightly more goofy out there art style. It's entirely possible, but I think it's the perfect middle ground. I mean, I never say that any particular thing, whether it be a acting performance or a writing job or an artwork, that can be done by just one person. But if you were gonna pick one person, I think you found the right person.
It's funny because Mike we didn't just hand him a script and have him draw it. We spent a lot of time meeting with him. We went to the Science Museum. We looked at tech stuff, and really, Mike has such an obsession with the Apollo missions, NASA in general. He knows it inside out, and we've had real, genuine space people kind of give him mega compliments for his attention to detail in the placement of the antenna on the module and everything. He's got so many little things in that book that if you give it a second read with a really, really a really hardcore NASA eye, you probably won't make many faults in what he's done. That was a bit of a waffle on, but yeah, he's incredible. I mean, Mike brought so much more than just his art skill.
See, that's the thing, because whenever you look at whether it be a comic book set on real life events or a historical drama on TV or in the movies or something, there's always going to be the general audience, idiots like me basically, who don't know shit about NASA, who read this thing and can get involved in the story and the characters and everything. And then there's the people who actually know something about this thing, basically my dad, who will enjoy it on another level. And it's always good to have both of those things, because if not, I mean, you're always going to satisfy the general audience, but if you miss out on the historical accuracies, and you're going to lose a lot of your audience.
Yeah, I mean that kudos goes completely to Matt, really, because his he kind of led our research folder on our drive. Really, he was very much the one who was read up on stuff. I read books, but a lot of the books I read had lovely page markers of read this, Chris, and check this bit out for this bit, So there was a plan with the research.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like it was important that we got it right. Like you said, Scott, to not piss off quite a big bit of our audience. And also, even the general audience, I think that unknowingly, because it is accurate, they can sort of soak it up and get absorbed into the story more without even knowing, because it all just feels real and right.
Yeah,
and
the more naturalistic it is, the more we can accept this world.
Yeah, exactly.
And from a storytelling point of view, I mean, yeah, we had this wonderful framework of the NASA experience, the Apollo 11 landing, the historical event. But Matt and I did really want to flex more than just our kind of research muscles. So there are three very unique stories within there of the three characters. Neil is the main arc, I suppose, but Buzz has a very compelling tale, which it's based on facts, but it's also had a bit of embellishment. A lot of
I
people.
was going to ask about that because there's two. I think in terms of the research and the information presented on the page, there's two kinds: the technical information, or the MacGuffins and gizmos and antenna, as you say, and there's also the personal information, these real people's real lives.
Yeah. I mean, that was, in a way, that's actually the most important thing going on in the story. It's a human story. There's a big event here. There's a big technological step forward. There's a big political, thing happening. But there's these three guys who have unique paths that have all led them to be. I mean, what were they? And Matt will know this. Were they called? They called themselves, is it amicable strangers?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So
It's like people when you're at work and you have a project you've all got to work on, and you're all competent at your job and you know what you're doing, but at the same time, like, you're not going to be close friends, but like, hey, you know what? We got the job done. Well done, us.
Yeah, I was kind of sad when I found out that they weren't really great friends, but yeah, they did the job. And, I think just going back to what Chris was saying, we didn't want to just put a Wikipedia page into comic book form, because there's no real point in that. You can go and read umpteen books on Apollo 11. Like, you don't need to just have a by the numbers version. So we did want to dig into it a bit and discover more about the people, and that is all accurate as well. Like, spoiler alert, but this is real. But
how spoilerific do you guys want to get? Because this book has only just come out very recently.
I mean, I can say things like Neil Armstrong did have a daughter that passed away when she was 3. And that was a big part of the story for us because we're both dads.
Yeah, it really resonated.
Well, you dedicated the book to your daughters, didn't you?
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, the hope is that the book, it sounds a bit lofty, but I hope people might read it and be inspired. And, I'm not saying they're going to go and be astronauts when they grow up, but they can apply the achievements that Neil Armstrong and Mike Collins and Buzz Aldrin made to anything that they're doing in life, and that's personally to my own kids, but to anyone really. If you can put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. I think that's what the moon landing really says.
Yeah, it was it was the pinnacle, at least at the time, of human innovation, exploration, and just daring.
Name me something since then that has matched it or surpassed it in terms of strides.
Season 2 of Love Island.
I don't talk about Love Island in interviews.
No, I've never even seen an episode. I've just heard terrible, terrible things.
Yeah, my wife watches it.
I'm so sorry.
Why don't we just cut the middleman out and just once the watersheds happened, we just watch hardcore pornography and executions and just be done with it? We're taking too long to get to that. I wish we would just get to that and be done with it.
And now on the Murder and Sex channel, it's more murder and sex.
No, it would be more like, and now on Channel 4, the news, and then we're on to an execution, and then hardcore midget pornography.
We laugh, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
And it's real, all of it.
Oh, God, yeah.
Well, anyway, meanwhile, back in the comics world.
Back in the comics world, okay, so I see a lot of the technical information, stuff like that. You went to museums, you said. Where exactly did you go? What was the process? How did you compile all the information?
Well, the Science Museum's got a full life-size replica of the lunar lander.
All right.
So that's pretty cool. So we went there with Mike. He took loads of reference photos because he didn't want to just Google images that everyone else can Google of the lunar lander. He wanted to get it from certain angles that you're not going to find on the internet, and dramatic sort of filmic angles. So we did a lot of visual research at the Science Museum, but we also just used it as a base for our meetings with Mike because it just felt like a nice fitting place to catch up, have a beer, and talk about what we were going to do. But apart from that, I mean, a lot of it was books, like Chris said. Like, we've read so many books, like piles and piles of them. My dad's really into space history anyway, so he was actually the one who lent me the Neil Armstrong biography to begin with, and then I borrowed a lot of his books, and then kind of went from there. There's loads of stuff online too. So NASA themselves sent us some flight information. I was trying to find a fact and I couldn't find it anywhere, so I emailed NASA, and they literally sent me a scanned PDF of some document from 1969. Just reams and reams of information and flight data that we could pour through, and everything from what time they took off to the second, right down to like what they ate, what the menu was on a Tuesday while they were in space. NASA's got it all, and they'll give it to anyone.
See, I've heard really good things about NASA responding to people who ask them questions, like kids who send them questions about what it means to be an astronaut, and they send like fully detailed letters and all this fun like goodies back to them. It really shows that they are actively encouraging inspiration.
They really are. The only thing they can't do is they're not allowed, because they're a government agency, they're not allowed to endorse any commercial endeavor. So they can't promote Apollo, for example. They're not allowed to tweet about it or anything like that, which is a shame for us because that would have been some nice PR. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, they're super helpful. They're so cool.
I'm really glad they did that. But also on you said talking about the personal lives of the three astronauts. So you said you had to embellish stuff. What's the ratio of embellishment versus, oh no, this is real, this has happened?
Well, we don't know, for example, what was in any of the astronauts' minds at the time. So all the inner monologue stuff is us guessing, but based on real things that happened, you know. So it was more a case, it wasn't a case of making shit up for fun. It was more like, well, what would this person probably be thinking at this time? What do we want them to say? What are we trying to say through them? So that's all fictional, I guess, but still rooted in fact.
I think that's all you can hope, because I mean, in any biopic where you're transplanting a real life story into a fictional story or a story on a page or on screen or whatever, you're going to have to make changes. You're going to have to make embellishments, and not just for dramatic convenience, but also just for time convenience, for economy of words or screen time or whatever. So it's never going to be exactly the same, and that's a good thing, because if it was exactly the same, 9 times out of 10, it will be boring as fuck.
Well, exactly, yeah. And you know, sometimes we've had to create scenes that probably didn't happen to get across something that we needed to say, you know? And there's a scene where Buzz and Aldrin, who's another astronaut, are having a chat fishing. I don't know if they went fishing. They might have. But it doesn't really matter. It's just about, we needed Buzz to be having a conversation about his desire to be the first man on the moon. And we thought, well, let's just do it. Two guys, two buddies having a little round of fishing, and that just felt like a nice place to do it. So that kind of stuff's made up.
Yeah, but it makes sense though, because like it never feels like exploitative or fanficky or anything like that. It feels like this is something that could genuinely have happened.
Yeah, we wanted to try and keep it based in reality. Apart from, there's one, I mean, slightly controversial plot thread. Some people love it, other people aren't so sure that maybe they weren't expecting it. But Mike Collins was alone while they went down to the moon.
It's lonely out in space.
It is lonely out in space, as Bowie told us, and we felt like that was a really good opportunity to explore. I mean, he's the loneliest man in the world, or not in the world, off the world at that point. He's completely isolated from the whole of humankind. You know, he was the furthest person from Earth ever at that point, and yeah, I mean, that's going to make you think. I mean, these are all professionals, and I doubt Mike Collins really went trippy. I'm sure he's remained professional, but he's actually, so his autobiography called Carrying the Fire is great. It's written actually by him rather than a ghostwriter or anything like that.
Oh, see, that's rare.
Really rare, yeah. And as a result, it's one of the best books on space because he's got like a real 60s cool cat vibe to him.
Hey, Daddy-O.
He does say stuff like that, yeah. And
look at the transcripts.
Yeah, he really does. So that gave us a sort of an in to Mike. We went, well, look, he seems like he's a bit of a hippie. So, and it was the 60s. So let's
imagine him hallucinating the spirit of America, which looks like an extra from Easy Rider.
That's exactly the chat we had. Yeah,
Spirit of America is a really funny one because like Matt and I had sat and we wanted to do, because basically it's all about Mike's got to do this very, very complex moment where he redocks with the Eagle, and he's just like, if he doesn't do it, he's got to go home. And you know, we ended up thinking, well, what would he do? He'd have to go home on his own. These guys are like floating in space, they're gonna die, and he's failed, and people will tell him he was brave, but ultimately we thought that would be a really good thing to explore. This is the responsibility this guy had that we never really hear about. I mean, he didn't.
Honestly, I've always remembered Buzz Aldrin. I have always remembered Neil Armstrong. I have heard the name Michael Collins and forgotten the name Michael Collins repeatedly throughout my life, to my shame.
It's apt that the Mike Collins who drew it, that everyone brings this up in every interview. It's like a little quib that people make. And I hope Mike Collins, the real Michael Collins, not the real one, the astronaut Michael Collins. There is only one real Michael Collins. I hope he's seen more as a figure that had an important role to play. And the spirit of America was, Matt and I, that was our way of trying to make him. America's amazing, and it's more than it's like communism. It's great on paper, Yeah. And America, we had to personify that somehow. And there's a lot of stuff.
Because the weight of the entire country's national pride was on him.
Yeah. Originally, he was kind of like an American Indian kind of guy. It was an image of an American Indian on a horse on the moon, like talking to an astronaut. And that kind of image evolved over time. And Mike wanted every sequence to have a really different, distinct panel style. You got the Liechtenstein with the plane and everything. And, there's this kind of darkness to the Apollo 1 story. And so the spirit of America was really like Mike going, I know what I'm doing here, guys. And we kind of settled on a sort of Dennis Hopper-y kind of look. It's weird. Some people really don't like him. They take great offense to the
much like America itself. Some people like it and some people don't.
Yeah, but that's the thing. America isn't just for Americans. Everyone can be an American if they want to be. And America have exported their ideals for so long that kids like me and Matt, who've grown up reading comic books and watching John Carpenter movies and American, all this, that, and the other, we've just sort of like inhaled America all our lives. And now it's part of the oxygen we breathe. And so we exhale something we think. So, yeah.
That's what the moon landings were as well, weren't they? Yeah, America went to the moon, but really the whole of humanity went to the moon on their, piggyback on their shoulders. And, I think
one small step for man, not one small step for an American.
Exactly. And I think it's an international story. American people should obviously be very proud of what they and their government achieved. But I think now we kind of all own it a bit. And
it's really, I don't want to jump in, Matt, but this is where I need to explain that the original introduction to Apollo was with Nazis.
That's true.
And that was the point, really.
Go on. Oh, my God.
Oh, man. I mean, this was back in Dead Canary editing time, but I'd written this thing and I'd sent it to Matt, and I believe he'd brushed it up and put it in, and it was the big grand opening. And it was basically a kind of Inglourious Bastards, Nazis killing themselves and burning papers and trying to kill scientists before the Russians or the Americans can take all the V2 rocket stuff. And Von Braun gets snatched, gets bagged. And I think we all had cameos in it at that time. So I think Mark and Matt had cameos, and they were like bagging Von Braun. And then we had this whole like ending of him going, I still want to make rockets, but I want them to be for good, And then it's cut to the book intro you now have. But yeah, I mean, we wanted it to be international, certainly, because it's all about humanity. It's just that America did it,
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I really like the intro they have. It sets it off as a really it's a great bookend for the book, because the book ends in this really big open way. I won't go into too many details, but it sort of opens in this big open way, but it happens on Earth, on watching the rocket go up. And the rocket go up. I know science, and so I think it really works on that way. I think that intro would have worked better than maybe the Nazi way. Although I mean,
hence why it's the way it is now.
Yeah, we wanted, like, conceptually, we wanted the whole book to be beginning and ending with the mission. So, page 1, it takes off. And on the last page, although you don't actually see it because it's from a real far distance out in space, it splashes down. So the mission begins, the mission ends, and that's the book beginning and the book ending. And everything else is sort of flashbacks or woven into that. But we wanted to keep our through line those 4 days from liftoff to splashdown.
Yeah, I think it's really good just from a narrative sense. It's nicely structured.
Yeah, it gave us something to hang on to and to keep coming, keep us on a path, really.
Yeah, because it is tricky because you've got three very important characters that you've got to give sufficient amount of time, sufficient amount of pages, sufficient amount of development, and it's a very hard thing to, I think, keep balanced and you've got to make sure that they're all distinct from each other. I think that's a good point to talk about. Let's talk about the individual, the astronauts. To start with, Buzz Aldrin. Most famous now for being the second man on the moon and the best actor in all the Transformers movies.
Was he in a Transformers movie?
I think he was in the second one.
Really?
Or the
Wow.
third one. Oh, I don't know. They're all the fucking same. Oh, shit.
Well, that's the thing. I've only seen the first one and then never watched any ever again. So,
Yeah. Yes.
wow, didn't know Buzz was in one.
Yeah, because I think because the Transformers was from space and he was in space and he does cameos now and then. He was in the ending of Mass Effect. And I think that's the only thing I can remember of. Oh, and that one video where a guy calls him a coward and he punches him the fuck out.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, the guy, the conspiracy nut.
God, it really. So I know we were going to talk about the character. It's going to be a very serious conversation about character development, but no, we're going to fucking talk about this for a second because it really gets on my wick when people say the moon landing was faked. Because, I can understand why someone might have that initial idea. I get it. We're considering the climate of the time and, the technology that people think was on hand. I get it. People might think the moon landing was fake. 2 seconds of research is all it takes for you to realise, wait a minute, no, there's no way it can possibly be faked.
It's. I'm going to be really, really bad, but I remember I actually found it quite a compelling argument that the moon landing was fake at one point in my youth.
No,
but, like you just said, just take a little time, do a bit of research, and you'll find out that thing that's keeping your whole story in your head together about why this thing is fake, it falls apart. And, you got to apply the Occam's razor kind of analogy and think things through and really look at the evidence because it's so well documented. I mean, as Matt has already said, we had access to anything we want. If you've got a problem, don't ask NASA, is it fake? Just say, okay, NASA, I can't see there's a crosshair missing in this one photograph. And they'll come back and say, oh yeah, well, we edit photos. I mean, these people aren't photographers. So we have to make photos out of hundreds of photos. And then you'll get your answer. And then
simple. Do people actually ask them, hey, NASA, was the moon landing faked? What do you think they're going to reply back? Yes, it was.
I mean, the policy is just to ignore that. It's a bit like when someone asks a geologist, is there a flat Earth? Why are people hiding the flat Earth? I don't want to, anyway.
I met someone at a convention. I won't say which one. I don't want to call anyone out. But I met someone who believed that the Earth was flat. And it's just like, why? Why?
Ask them to explain the seasons and how the years work and stuff. I'll just ask them very, very sort of, simple questions, and then they'll see how stupid they are.
Either that, or they would just be trolling us and just cling to their beliefs even more. I don't know. But anyway, talking about serious stuff. Jeez, God. Buzz Aldrin. So a lot of his stuff is focused on. Neil Armstrong's development is sort of focused on his family that he has right now and his wife and his kids. Buzz Aldrin is focused more on the family, like his relationship with his dad in particular.
Yeah.
So,
that was Buzz's. And going back to what you asked earlier about what is real, that was Buzz's main motivation, was to please his dad. He said that before in interviews and stuff, and in his own. He's written quite a few books actually, Buzz, and he's mentioned that his dad was a really well thought of aviator in his own right.
Well,
so
had meetings and stuff like with Howard Hughes.
Yeah,
he knew the Wright brothers. I mean, this guy was in the center of everything aviation. I mean, he knew all
aviation. Yeah. So even though Buzz Aldrin went to the moon, he still felt that being second on the moon wasn't good enough, and his dad wasn't going to be happy. And to an extent, from what I've seen of his dad, I think it's probably true.
That's. My God. What do you mean you've only been second to the moon? Why couldn't you be first? Oh, I'm sorry, Dad. Have you been to the moon? Have you been to space? What have you done lately, Dad?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, we
our
actually
parents say that's what our parents they mess us up. It happens.
Trust me, I know. I come from a military family. My dad and my mum and my grandfather and my grandmother have all been in the RAF. multiple family members been in the RAF, so I know about that sort of world and that sort of experience, at least when it comes with aviation. So, I mean, thankfully, my dad has never acted in the way that, at least the way you represented Buzz Aldrin's dad in the comic. Thankfully, he's always been very supportive.
And to be honest, Edwin Aldrin Sr., Buzz's dad, was the hardest person to do any research on. There's not much out there apart from what Buzz has said about him. And like, there's an obituary online which talks a bit about his achievements. And there's not much character stuff out there. So we did embellish that a bit. I think we probably dialed disapproving dad up to 10 or
but
11.
It made that for a much more compelling thing. There's a scene later, again, I won't go into too many details, where he's seeing him on TV, and I'll be honest, guys, I'm not a crier. It's not me. I'm repressed as fuck, but I may have got a little bit misty, just like, oh.
Well, good. That was the intention. I'm glad I made you cry.
You didn't make me cry. I want to stress that fact. I don't cry. I'm British.
Buzz kind of gets a reason in that. Just talking about, but he gets a reasonably nice closed off arc. And I feel that he's kind of tied up, and there's even a nice little quib at the end, which goes back to the amicable strangers. But Edwin never really. I mean, the Edwin scene, we were prepared to really embellish on it, and we had written a more extreme version of that scene, but we went right back to the sort of factual stuff. And by then he's a widower, so and we kind of needed to have this sense of loneliness, like. So yeah, I'm glad it made you missed up, man. That's good.
Yeah, well, it's a testament to the writing. That could have been very, as I said before, exploitative or very on the nose, but it works. It works within the context of the story, and it felt genuine. I obviously say it's not genuine, but it felt that way.
Buzz's story is a bit like the Empire in our Star Wars trilogy of stories. It's like a bit dark.
That's a very good analogy, I think.
Yeah, it's dark. It's got the Halloween stuff in it. It's even got so it's got everything a bit. Everything's a bit sinister in the Buzz story, I think.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like the shadow looming over him, shadow of Neil, shadow of his dad, shadow of his various accomplishments, and then it's by the end of it, I don't think he sort of becomes lifted of that shadow, becomes sort of free of it, and he's just like, he knows his place in the world, or on the moon, as it were, and he's okay with that.
Yeah, and I think in reality, it took Buzz Aldrin a number of years to come full circle and be okay with it. I mean, he's well documented that he struggled with alcoholism and depression for years and years and years after coming back, and now he seems like he's got it under control, and he's fairly level-headed about it all. So
unless you call him a coward, in which case, boom, round the kisser.
Yeah, punch in the face. But it was the 80s, and I think in the 80s, I think you were allowed to punch people in the face. I
thought it was much more recent than that. I thought it was like in like the 2000s at least, or at least.
Yeah,
oh really?
Quite recent actually. It was like some fucking.
Oh, good on him. The old man's still got a punch.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like a massive punch, but it's just like the guy was right in his face. He was just like, "Whoa, what's going on?" As far as I can remember, and he's just like, "You're a liar. You're a coward." Bam.
The funny thing is about Buzz Aldrin, they have this like saying about astronauts, you've got to put the right stuff. Yeah. And Buzz got rejected first time he tried to apply, and you don't have people with the right stuff don't get rejected. But I mean, we tried to show this guy is he's all American fucking hardcore. I mean, that photograph moment. Spoilers, as Buzz Aldrin takes this incredible photograph of a Chinese fighter. He's shooting down a Chinese fighter and taking a photograph of the guy and letting the guy eject and taking the photograph. And it made, I believe, it made Life magazine, and that's a big deal. This guy, he's shooting a plane down while taking a photo of the damn thing. So
oh my god, he's Tom Cruise in Top Gun.
Totally, he did it. This is where it comes from. And Buzz Aldrin still didn't make it into the astronaut corps, and I think we give him a fairly good redemption. I was a bit funny. We keep talking about the punch because I used to joke with Matt about is Buzz Aldrin going to punch us when he sees us if he ever meets us? I hope he meets us, but at the same time, I hope he never meets us.
I highly doubted. I mean, from what else I could have seen, he seems. Bearing in mind, I don't know the man. I don't know if I have any great connection with him. So he seems like a fairly mellow guy. But like these people did risk their lives for this massive human endeavor, there was a very real chance they couldn't have them back. They had multiple speeches prepared for if one of them dies, all of them die, two of them die, and one managed to make it back. Or if they're trapped on the moon, or if they never make it off the launch pad, if they just explode in the first place. They prepared for every eventuality. There was a very real chance they would not have come back.
And there were deaths, there were deaths.
Apollo 1, I was not as familiar with this. I knew about Gus Grissom because I know a bit about the Mercury 7 astronauts just because I remember a few of their names because that's what the characters in Thunderbirds were named after, and I love Thunderbirds. But I didn't know about the fire that claimed those lives on a rehearsal, wasn't it?
It was really sad, yeah. It's just that the oxygen level was too pure, and there was an exposed wire that caused a spark, and then they hermetically sealed, chamber. They didn't last very long. So, but all of that, I should mention all the dialogue is the last recording of them, and I felt like that moment in the book we were trying to be respectful, but we didn't want to linger too much on it. We just wanted to introduce the character of death, and
show what the stakes are.
Yeah, well, the book has a great theme in it, a great long theme of death. That there's a lot of risk attached to this mission, and that death is very accessible. You're in your little environment, floating in a can. I think that was something that we thought about a lot, actually. Yeah.
Because that's the thing. When you look out on the Earth, a lot of astronauts said it makes the idea of these human concepts either feel very small or like very big. I think there was a Neil Armstrong quote. I don't know if this is actually attributed to him or not, or if it was another astronaut. But he said he looked on the moon and he put out his thumb and he managed to blot out the Earth with his thumb. And he said, at that moment, I didn't feel very big. I felt very, very small.
Well, yeah, that sounds like something I've read, actually. So you're probably right. It's probably one of those guys. Probably one of Neil Buzz.
It doesn't matter really who it is, because it's a very real thing astronauts have talked about.
Psychologically, it must be a very strange... I really personally want to meet an astronaut, and I keep saying to Matt, when can we meet an astronaut? If there's any astronauts listening to this or anyone connected to an astronaut, please get in touch. There's a book in it for you.
Get the guy who sang all those songs with his guitar in space.
Oh,
I can never remember the guy. He's got the mustache. He's really cool.
Yeah. Chris
Hadfield. Yeah, he's amazing. Chris Hadfield. Talking in London. He was talking the day after our book launch in London. We actually tried to invite him. I don't know. It's Tim Peake, isn't it? The UK guy.
Yeah.
I want to meet him.
I can't remember who the first British person in space was. I know it was a woman. I can't remember her name, sadly. I remember 90% of all the names of Marvel characters, but I can't remember someone who actually went into space. What's wrong with me?
It's okay. I mean, there's more to this book than just the space facts. There's a compelling tale.
There is a compelling tale. Speaking of which, Michael Collins, the sequence when he's finally alone and I found it very, very interesting. It's not just from a writing standpoint, but from an artist standpoint. I will say this. The scene where the moon has a face. guys, that scared me. That's a scary scene. That's a scary scene. It was like the fucking moon from Legend of Zelda. It was just like, no, I don't like it. Oh, he's eating him! Oh, no!
Next time you go to a con, ask Mike Collins to make the moon face. You'll see how he drew it with a mirror. It's Mike Collins. It looks just like him, and it's like panel 3 on that page. It's just like the image of Mike Collins.
I'm sure it wasn't meant to be scary. I'm sure it's not intentionally scary.
I'm honestly a bit shocked that double pager is still in the book. I think that was something that was, I don't know, probably a stoned and drunk night.
But I think it's thematically
and
appropriate.
I'm on WhatsApp talking about what we're going to write tomorrow and coming up with a load of weird shit.
Well, mission accomplished on that front. It's weird shit, but it's good weird shit. I've read stuff where it's weird shit for the sake of weird shit, and it's weird shit, but that actually has a point.
Oh, we don't do weird shit for the sake of it, though. That's bad writing, I think. You've got to have a purpose to things. Things need to serve the story. It's all about the story.
The story comes first. That is my rule, and it works on that level. I mean, it's one of those things where when I was reading it, at least for the first time, I sort of sat back and read and just sort of marvelled in the artistry of it, the way everything flowed into it, and I say different art styles are used for each one of the bits, and it's just, I don't know, it was after the moon bit, after the scary moon bit, it was rather relaxing.
Was it scary, that moon bit?
Yeah, it was scary. It was I actively recoiled. From the screen when I was watching. I was just like, oh, okay, we're doing this then. Okay, fine, I've calmed a bit now. Oh no, it's eating him. No, it's maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm overly sensitive. Who knows?
It would be. I think if you were alone in space, even if you're Mike Collins and you're a trained astronaut, it would be a bit scary, I think.
I gazed into the abyss, and the abyss gazed back.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, I mean, everything that happens in that sequence, the moon face and the Spirit of America, I mean, the way I read into it is it's all in Mike's head. Not to say that he was insane or anything, but, you know, it's just
the idea of it all was in his head. Like, this is you're transcribing his thoughts on a.
It's the conversations that we all have with ourselves, you know, when we're alone, and you kind of, you know, you're in a thoughts, and we just kind of wanted to give him someone to talk to, really.
Because otherwise it'd be fucking boring. He'd just be floating around in the tin can for like a couple of pages, like,
yeah,
when are they going to get back?
Or it would be in a monologue of him going, "I'm really lonely right now," and
I hope I can make the big thing happen.
Yeah, exactly. So we wanted to give a bit of a voice for him to talk to. So he talks to the moon, and then he talks to America.
And then he talks to Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, she's floating out there still.
Let me in! Let me in! Don't let her in! No. It was, you know, it was really good. And it's just, what I like about it is, actually, one thing before we finish talking about that, we need to talk about everyone's favourite crook, Richard Nixon.
Fucking love Richard Nixon. I had a really weird obsession with Nixon in university.
All right.
I don't know, maybe one day in like 20, 30 years time, there'll be like some guy who's obsessed with Trump in the same way. Because Nixon was a really global president. He wasn't really thinking about the little things, and that's where he fucked up. But I always wondered, you never really see his moon landing legacy. And I think that we kind of touched on something that could be true. I don't know.
It feels like, because I mean,
he felt like that about Kennedy and about. I know that he always felt
very insecure. He's come out as a very insecure guy.
He was about his place in the world, and he didn't have the right education. Like the Kennedys. The Kennedys were like what he wanted to be. Like, well-to-do.
They always see a grocer, a greengrocer. I think he said in your book.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I love that Oliver Stone film. So in a way, it was like, you know, that's the best Nixon. You know, Anthony Hopkins nails Nixon, that and Futurama. So, you know,
and of course the Frost Nixon, I particularly.
No, that sucks. That sucks. Sucky movie. The only good thing about that movie is the acting in it.
I've never seen it.
Not good. I mean, it is good, and it's just not my cup of tea. And then once you've seen like Nixon, 1995. You don't go back, man.
Well, obviously, I need to see that movie. Maybe we'll change my whole perspective.
Kevin fucking Spacey did remade the Elvis Meets Nixon. Go watch the original HBO TV movie. It's brilliant. It's masterful.
Oh, God.
It's got that guy. I only remember him as the cop from Demolition Man, and he's also an admiral in Star Trek Next Gen. He's that actor who does a bit of everything.
Oh God! Damn it! I'm only on Deep Space Nine and I'm working backwards. Jeez. Not that important.
Watch Next Gen. What kind of podcast is this?
Yeah, I started out with Voyager and I'm working my way backwards.
You're doing it all wrong.
Wait, but you've seen it before, right? You're rewatching.
Well, Next Gen, no.
Oh,
You've never seen Star Trek Next Generation?
No, not a one.
Wow.
Yeah. Deal with it. I like Voyager too. Yeah. You know what? Janeway's my favorite captain.
I don't mind Voyager. I don't mind it.
It's all right. It's just, you know, it's just a monster of the week again. That's what they went back to. Like, it's like Lost in Space But Next Gen is brilliant, man. You're missing them. Honestly,
I'm looking forward to it. I
now.
really am. But I don't know why. I started out with Voyager because I wanted to get into Star Trek because I was always a Star Wars guy, and I thought I ought to give Star Trek a chance.
Two things that got Star in them. They're not even comparable.
I know. They're trust me, they're widely different. I know that now. But I wanted to watch Voyager because it was sort of on its own thing, and there wasn't a lot of crossover. And it worked very well as sort of an introductory thing for me. So maybe I should just have skipped DS9 and gone straight to Next Generation, or maybe even, here's an idea, going with the original series.
I mean, I think you're going to struggle to go backwards because it gets worse in terms of special effects and stuff, Yeah.
I see that doesn't really matter to me because I'll watch old Doctor Who and I'm fine with it.
Yeah, true.
It's the world that existed. But anyway, we need to talk about the guy. We need to talk about Neil Armstrong. Now,
honestly, I'm on Amazon right now. I'm going to buy you Next Gen. I'm going to get your address.
Oh, God. Oh, no, we couldn't possibly do that.
I'm joking. What's your question about Polly?
We're moving. We was talk about Star Trek another time. Jeez, we're talking about people who've actually been to space. Jeez.
Anytime.
Neil Armstrong. Now, I was honestly, all I knew about Neil Armstrong prior to reading this book was he was the first guy on the moon. He said one small step for man, one giant for mankind, and afterwards, quite naturally, became a bit of a recluse, and that was basically it. And
very strange. People always say he became a recluse because he didn't really. He just chose not to cash in. Really, he did do a couple of commercials, and he was teaching at university. And Matt, am I wrong here? Is this me just going off on one of my tangents?
No, you're right. But yeah, he didn't want the celebrity of it. That's why they chose him, really, because he was quite humble and he was going for the right reasons. He wasn't trying to be. And
how many crashes did he survive?
I'm not sure, but a lot. Yeah, a lot.
It's like 7 or something, or 6.
Yeah.
And he literally, this bloke's unkillable.
But to be honest, Scott, I'm the same as you. Until I read the biography, Last Man, all I knew was Neil Armstrong went to the moon and said one small step. I'm the same. And it was when I read that book and I kind of went, wow, this guy, he's awesome. He's so cool under pressure. He's so thoughtful. He's so intelligent. He's a family man. He's achieved this amazing thing. He's probably one of the most famous people ever and will be forever, so it's just quite an extraordinary character. But yeah, I didn't know a lot either, and that was what sort of sent us down this journey when we realized that there was so much more to this person that now is pretty much, he is remembered in a very basic way as just that guy who went to the moon, but he was a real...
The people who knew him, there's an interview that his wife is doing in the comic, and she's like, what's it like being married to an astronaut who's going to the moon? And it's like, well, to me, he's just Neil.
Exactly, yeah. He was a real person.
Yeah, and it came off, honestly, it did come off as very human, but also sort of larger than life. The humble, you just describe him as humble, and that really did come across, for me at least, reading the book. But also, there was well, as we see, as you read further in the book, you find more about that. There's a hidden pain there. There's just something in his peripheral that's just there, and it's something that's wounding him, and it's painful for him, but it's something that he's marching forward on, carrying on regardless.
Yeah, and that element of the story, so for the people who haven't read it yet, don't really want to ruin it, but we're talking about the death of his daughter. And he didn't really talk about it much. He wasn't the kind of guy to go into work and moan about anything that was happening in his personal life. He just sort of kept it to himself. And he never actually said it, but a lot of people speculate that was the thing that sent him to the moon. That was the thing that made him focus on his work and focus on something else to kind of, almost as an antidote to that pain, just it's a very normal thing, isn't it? Throw yourself into your work. Loads of people do it. Just so happens that his work was astronaut.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's really not much more we can say about that. It really shows the strength of the guy, and it's a very human thing to do.
I mean, he crashed a test lander, literally ejected 5-6 seconds before it hit the ground. Went back to work and finished paperwork. He's just like emotionally completely on point, and this is why this guy was leading the mission.
This is why, because it was Aldrin was the pilot, but he was the what were they called, the commander?
Yeah, Neil was the commander, yeah, and Aldrin was the pilot, yeah.
Okay. Exactly. Again, I don't know that much about it, but I think that's a great thing. Reading this book, I have been entertained. I've been thoroughly entertained, but I've learned something, and I like it when something does those things in time. I love it when I'm entertained, but I also learn something new, and it feels genuine and moving, but also I come away better for the experience. I come away knowing something I didn't know before, and just I have been added to in a way. I feel more full as a person.
We would have been doing a real disservice to the reader. I mean, if we hadn't tried to at least have you walk away from it knowing the moon landing a bit better, and that's why we've got a really well-stocked bibliography and appendices, and
there's also there's technical information at the back of the book. That's not spoiled, I don't think, about the rockets they use and the people.
And those beautiful. I just got to shout out that J. Francis Totti, who did that, is an incredible artist, and he literally just sat down and drew those. He just drew them. I mean, this guy took a model, looked at it, and went, "Yeah, I'll do this." He's got a real eye for technical drawings, amongst other things.
I love it. It just makes the book feel like it's a book about this stuff. It's not just a book that happens to feature a story that's about these events. It's a story that encapsulates this whole idea of NASA and space exploration and these astronauts and these people and these machines.
Yeah, and we actually toyed at one point with whether we should do that much detail about the tech. Because, there's asterisks. I don't know what the plural of asterisks is, but...
Asteri.
Asteri, okay. Probably.
I'm making that up, I don't know.
You're probably right. All throughout the book, there's notes, EVA,
extravehicular activity.
And we worried that maybe that would distract from the story, and, you're in a human moment, and then you're reading some piece of tech thing, and...
The opposite could also be true. They could be reading this thing. They say,
what the heck it is. Yeah,
and they won't know what's going on. Like, what is that? That could also take someone out of the story. So I think, it might still take someone out of the story, but at the same time, it's a much safer bet, I think.
And that's the decision that we made in the end. And then the appendix and the diagrams in that sort of play into that. So if you, there's all page numbers on the diagrams so that you can refer back, and maybe if you want, you can understand, you don't need to understand how the rocket separates and what it was that Mike was docking with. But if you want to know, it is in there.
And, you never know. Someone might take this information away, and that might lead to a further interest, at least in what happened with Apollo 11, or even other space missions that have happened. Maybe one day, someone will join Donald Trump's Space Force.
Maybe.
Oh, God. I mean, that's the thing, you see. I think we do need to get out there. I think we need to get out of space. I want us to go to Mars, not just for the sake of saying that we went to Mars or whatever, but so that we can actually do something there. And so we can actually... I mean, I'll be going to be honest with you guys. I'd like to retire on the moon. Like a semi-detached on the moon, looking at the Earth. Like, it will be astronomical rent-wise. That's why I'll only have a semi-detached, not an actual full detached. But you know what? That's what I'd like.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, a lot of astronauts come back and they're glad to be back, I think. The Earth is such a rich, beautiful place, and we're doing our best to destroy it, but I think all the guys who left it for a time came back with a renewed appreciation for it. So I think we need to be careful with this planet.
It's like you say in the quote at the beginning by Carl Sagan, "Once upon a time we soared into the solar system for a few years, then we hurried back. Why?
Yeah.
What happened?"
What was it about?
This is home.
Yeah. This is home, and it's nice to leave for a while. Space is nice, but for visiting, but you wouldn't want to live there.
Right.
When we find out how it can be monetized, that's when we'll see more space travel, because there's nothing in it for people apart from knowledge, and people don't really appreciate knowledge.
And that's why I kind of worry about future space travel, because Donald Trump's Space Force and all that sort of stuff. We suck, right? Humans suck, and we're going to go out there and do all kinds of horrible things and build weapons and probably destroy other planets. And, if we can get the Star Trek mentality of exploration.
Oh, I'd love Star Trek to happen.
Yeah, great. But we're not going to, are we? We're going to go and exploit whatever we can and ruin that too. So, yeah, it's a tricky one.
Well, you know what? That's the great thing about human beings do suck, but we do have one great thing, and we have hope. And that's what the Apollo 11 astronauts had. They hoped that they could get there. They hoped that they could make it back. And they had a lot of technical expertise and skill backing them up. Goodness knows how many people working that to make sure they did get back. But at the end of the day, they had hope. And they carried the hopes of the nation and the world with them.
Yeah, totally. And that's the nice side of it. And that's the bit that we should hold on to and that we wanted to get across in the book.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We love America. We wanted to kind of show, hey, America's done really cool things. We did contrast it with some of the bad things. But
oh yeah, there's a scene that took place in Vietnam. To a couple
in
of
the
songs.
ship.
Sorry?
Right in the shit as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's you're not just showing it like a sanitized version of events. It's not, as I say, exploitative. It's Apollo 11 is what it is. It's Apollo 11 in any sort of facet you can imagine about it.
Yeah, it's a little moment in time, I guess.
The moment in time where we went to the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on that note, where can people get this book?
I mean, we could recommend where we'd like you to get it from. It's available everywhere in the UK, all fine bookshops and comic shops. If you're in London, swing by Gosh. They've got a stack of copies we signed. Believe it's available. You can get limited book prints in OK Comics in Leeds. We're going to be signing up there at Thought Bubble on the Saturday. So if you're up at the festival, come shake our hands. Come challenge us on the flat Earth theory that we've discussed, and ask us some things about Star Trek if you like.
And I'll punch you in the face.
Yeah. Yes. Oh no, you won't. No, flat earthers. No one will punch you in the face. Looking nervously from side to side.
From Matt Fitch, please come to one of our signings. We're probably going to try and get down to the Waterstones in Crouch End, at least this end of summer. Matt's sort of hometown, so we'll do that. I don't know. We want to try and get out there and really get this into the hands of people to read, because it's been going down really well. Every time we've sat down to do a signing, all the books have sold, and we've had lovely conversations with people about space and about comic books in general. And it's funny because a lot of people have said, I don't normally read comics, but this looks really good. So let's hope we get more comic book readers, hey?
Yeah, introduce more people to the medium, and for people who already know the medium, just give them a great story to read.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the compliment.
No, it's not a compliment, it's the truth.
Oh, even better. An even better compliment.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. Thank you both for joining me today.
You're welcome. It's been fun.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Scott. I'm saying thank you in a sincere way.
No, it's no worries. And if you enjoyed the show, please tell your friends, shout it from the rooftops. And if you haven't already, go back and listen to some of our other super episodes. Like, we've done many interviews with many different people talking about comics. I ought to be able to think of one off the top of my head, but I can't right now because my room is very hot right now. And you can listen to the show on iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, or at podcapers.com. We have a Patreon. Check out the rewards, patreon.com/AP2HYC. And if you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe you want to come on the show yourself, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AP2HYC, or email us at podcapers@AP2HYC.com. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely microphone, the red and blue 3D glasses, those are mine. And thank you for listening. This has been Podcapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. Cue the music!